like there's nothing I can't do. I can do anything that I can think of in my head. You know, I just have to figure it out. I have to come to a place like this and rehearse and imagine. You know, so much of my work is imagining. You know, when I'm rehearsing, I'm imagining being in a big theater, or I'm imagining being in the world that I'm creating in that movie. And I'm imagining what it's like and how I can create that to make a movie, or in some cases to do a play. But our imagination is our key to everything. It's our freedom. It's our capabilities. It's our belief system. It's our sense of who we are and what we can do. It's our confidence. You know, if you can imagine, you could do anything. You know, I oftentimes like to sit on my little retractable stool, but sometimes I use it just to focus, and I prefer to stand sometimes. When I'm out in a place like this, I come to this place very often to rehearse. It's kind of down by the Hudson River. I don't know what it used to be, but it's nothing now. There's nothing here. It's under a pedestrian bridge. That's actually the longest pedestrian bridge in the world. It's in Poughkeepsie, New York. It goes from Poughkeepsie on this side to Highland, New York on the other side. I'm down near the train station. That's what's right on the other side of this fence right here. And yeah, I like to come out here and memorize my lines, work on my blocking, kind of imagine being in a theater or on set in a film, and I get to work on my craft here. And nobody bothers me, you know, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of cool. I wanted to talk real quick. I'm not even sure, I'm going to post this video eventually. I'm not sure I'll do it today. But I did want to talk about why Micro Four Thirds is actually really appealing to me. And I'm somebody who's actually shot very little Micro Four Thirds because I had an APS-C camera well, actually, I shot with my phone first. Like I made, you know, it's well documented, I made a feature film with my phone first. But then I owned the Sony a6400, which was an APS-C camera, Sony camera. And then I've been shooting ever since then with a Panasonic S5, which is a full frame camera. But I got a Panasonic GH5 as a backup because I was working on a project and it was taking me in some very kind of iffy places, you know, where I could hurt my camera. I was at a beach, I was around a lot of mud, I was around a lot of rocks. I was kind of in places where I wasn't really stable in terms of my footing. I was like standing in the river up to my thighs. So I thought, if anything, God forbid, happens to my camera, I'm getting paid by this person to do this project. I got to have a backup camera that can at least give me the same image quality that I'm getting with the S5. And so the GH5 is such a legendary camera, so I started looking for a GH5, even though I had no micro four thirds lenses. So it was kind of silly for me to do that, but I found a GH5 for $500, $475, like new. And it turns out it was just that. I bought it from a store, somewhere in Florida, I think, or something like that. So I found it on eBay. And I bought two really inexpensive micro four thirds lenses. I bought a TT Artisan 17mm f1.4, and I bought this lens, a Mikey 35mm f1.4, which is obviously an equivalent of a 70mm. So I'm standing probably 15 feet away from the camera right now, which makes me kind of feel like I'm shooting anamorphic in a way, because I shoot a lot of anamorphic with my full frame camera, and you know, the minimum focusing distance is really not that close to the camera, so I'm used to shooting like this. So I kind of like that because it's something that I'm used to. And also what I learned after I got the GH5 and I started messing around with it is that I love the way it looks. You know, I use the V-Log L, which is a light version of V-Log, and I find that I can match it pretty well with the S5. I think the S5 has more dynamic range, obviously. It's got dual native ISO, which is an advantage. But I don't know, I find when I crank up the ISO on the GH5, it doesn't create an image that bothers me at all. As a matter of fact, I'm somebody who's attracted to noise. Like, I love watching old Italian films, old movies, you know, I love old cinema. And so when I see noise, it kind of resonates with me. I'm not looking for the cleanest image, although with the S5, I get an incredibly clean image. Like, you know, if you watch my channel, I shoot a lot at night in a dark room and I have lights behind me. And if you look at those images, there's like no noise in there. I don't use any noise reduction. I use V-Log, and I grade it myself. I don't really use LUTs at all. I mean, sometimes I use LUTs, but not often, because I enjoy color grading myself. It's not that I'm against LUTs. It's just that I enjoy the process of pushing colors around and, you know, playing with my contrast and my saturation and stuff like that. So anyway, the thing about micro four thirds that's really appealing to me is that, first of all, the IBIS, the in-body image stabilization, is really powerful. And also it's got a fast readout speed, micro four thirds cameras. And so, you know, if you're doing run and gun kind of stuff, which is the way I work, you know, like, even though I'm a narrative filmmaker, I have the camera in my hands a lot. And I'm running around and I'm shooting very spontaneously sometimes. Like, I have a script and I have locations worked out, but quite often when I get to a location, you know, like, I'm not renting space, I'm not paying for locations. And sometimes I'll get somewhere and there's more people than I wanted to be there, or there's cops everywhere, and I just can't do it. So I got to go find someplace else. And so I just get back in my car and I just start driving around and I'll find something. And so what I'm saying is that I'll shoot just kind of off the cuff. And it's really good for me to have a camera that has good stabilization in my hands. I mean, I almost bought the GH5S because, you know, it's only 10 megapixels. It's much better in low light than the GH5, but who knew? You know, when I got the GH5, I don't feel limited in any way with low light. I just don't. I love the way this camera looks in any kind of circumstance. So, I don't know. You know, it's like I think about the GH7. I like the bodies of micro four thirds cameras. They seem to be chunky and powerful, at least the ones I've worked with. I mean, I know people talk a lot about how much they're smaller and the lenses are smaller. The two lenses that I bought are tiny. I also have an adapter for my vintage lenses, so I can adapt my vintage full frame lenses, which were made for 35mm film cameras, which covers a full frame camera. I can use them on the micro four thirds. They just double the focal length. So my Minolta 28mm is a 56, my 50 is 100, my 35 is a 70. The only thing is I can't use my anamorphic lenses. I can't adapt L mount to micro four thirds. So if I really wanted to make this micro four thirds camera a part of my kit, my professional kit, I would have to buy a couple of anamorphic lenses. And I'm not sure I want to do that because I'm in the middle of shooting a feature film right now, and I'm shooting it mostly anamorphic. So I'm using two anamorphic lenses. They're both APS-C lenses for my S5. And so I'm thinking very seriously of selling this camera, this GH5, and getting another S5 so I could use the two anamorphic lenses at the same time, not have to reshoot these scenes over and over again because I'm the only actor in the film. And so oftentimes I'll shoot the same scene over and over again and cut them together because I have to get the dialogue cut right. So I have to be really focused on moving in the same way and being at the same angles, and it's kind of complicated, you know? So I've thought about maybe getting one anamorphic lens for this camera along with another S5 and having 3 angles and keeping this camera. But the problem with Micro Four Thirds is that I can't get an anamorphic lens wide enough for that to make sense. Like I have a 35mm and a 75mm anamorphic for full frame, but they're APS-C lenses, so they're like the equivalent of 40 and 85, something like that, 40 and 90. So ideally, I would like a wider lens. So I was thinking of picking up the 24mm anamorphic that's made to go with my other 2 anamorphic lenses, the series lenses. So I'm probably going to wind up selling this camera, but I got to tell you, I'm kind of tortured about it, and I'm really interested in what people think about this because my reasoning for it is totally emotional. It's like, it's not, well, I don't know. I don't know how to describe this. I'm interested in shooting an entire feature film with a Micro Four Thirds camera just because I know I can. And like if I shoot an entire film like that and I didn't tell you I made it with a Micro Four Thirds camera, you would never know because I know that I could get the exact image that I want with Micro Four Thirds. And I also have to say that there's something about the image on this camera that I can't explain. It just looks a little bit different than the S5. And I love the image on the S5. Like I feel like the S5 rivals any cinema camera in terms of its image. It's like, it looks like an S1H. You know, it just looks creamy to me. It looks beautiful. It's not overly sharp. It's got a nice kind of roll off from the highlights to the shadows. I just love the way it looks. Sorry, there's a train going by right now, so if I'm talking a little bit louder, I apologize. So anyway, there's just something about the GH5 image that's really appealing to me. And also, like I said, I'm interested in doing something that people think you can't do. Like, I feel like it would be inspiring for other filmmakers to go, like, first of all, my first film, for example. When people watch my first film, that won so many laurels, I can't even fit them on one poster. It won so many awards. I had the magical musical score from Steve Peckman, and I just learned so much shooting that film. But most importantly, I had a great script. So when people watch that, I know that they say, damn, I could shoot a full-length feature film with my phone. And it's the same thing with Micro Four Thirds. Like, there's something about the notion of shooting an entire film with Micro Four Thirds by myself, all alone, with no crew, that makes me feel like it would encourage and inspire other filmmakers to do the same thing and not have to feel like you have to get it to full frame. Like, I don't feel like full frame is an advantage for me. You know, I bought the S5 first. All my lenses are for the S5. I'm used to working with the S5. The S5 has become a part of my body. I know all the settings. I know that camera like the back of my hand. And so that's why I love the S5. If I bought the GH5 first, I would probably be talking on YouTube about how you know, Micro Four Thirds is just as good as anything else. I would probably own a GH7 right now. Although I don't know about that because the GH5 is pretty dope. You know, like, I don't really see any limitation, you know, and it's got advantages over the S5. It's got a full-size HDMI if you want to use a monitor. And, you know, the only disadvantage to the GH5 to me is that I think the monitor sucks. It's hard to see. So, yeah, if I was only using this camera, I might have evolved into somebody who does use an external monitor. But I never like to put anything on my camera. What else? It's got a full-size HDMI. It's got unlimited shooting in 4K. The S5 doesn't have that. It's got open gate. I could shoot true open gate with the GH5. I can't do that with the S5. I can kind of do that if I go into anamorphic mode and it's 4:3, and I don't really understand why it's not open gate, but I could shoot, you know, full 4:3 the sensor in the S5 if I just get in anamorphic mode and use a regular spherical lens. But with the GH5, it's true open gate. I got 4K 60 with no crop in the GH5. There's a crop in the S5, which, you know, personally, it doesn't bother me. I think that's one of the most overstated issues ever, because I don't mind moving back 10 feet or whatever. And I don't really shoot slow motion that much anyway, so that doesn't really make a difference to me. But I don't know, there's something really, really appealing about Micro Four Thirds to me. I do like that the lenses are smaller. I like that the system is lighter because I could run around. I don't have to carry it on my back all day. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, not that the S5 is heavy, and you know, if I'm being honest, I've never felt like, oh, these lenses are just so heavy, and I don't feel like that, but I can see how it's an advantage for some people. I think it's, I think it's mainly that I'm kind of the kind of person who wants to do it because it's a challenge to other people, even though I know it's not really a challenge. But I just kind of am interested in doing it just because I can. And so I will shoot something major Micro Four Thirds. Probably not this project right now because I have my anamorphic lenses and it would just cost me too much money to completely turn over to Micro Four Thirds. And I ain't trying to spend all that money. I have everything that I need, you know. And you know what? I'll probably use this GH5 if I don't sell it to get a second S5. I'll probably use it as a second angle for this film. But I would say there's probably a 90% chance that I'm going to sell this GH5 with the lenses and probably throw in my Weeble S gimbal because I never use it and get a second S5 so I can shoot with my two anamorphic lenses at the same time. And then I won't own a Micro Four Thirds camera, but I'll feel sad about that. And I am positive when I have some extra cash, I'll buy another one. And it'll probably be a GH5, or maybe it'll be a Blackmagic Micro Four Thirds camera. Maybe it'll be a GH7, although I'm afraid of the GH7 a little bit because of, believe it or not, and I know this will sound crazy to some people, but I'm like a little afraid of the GH7 because it's got phase detect autofocus, and autofocus to me is like, I don't use it at all. So I'm afraid that the sensor on the GH7 is sharper than the GH5, and I'm afraid it'll compromise the image quality. And to me, the whole point of shooting and making movies is the image quality. That's why I'm not interested in the S5 II or the S5 IIX. I like the way the S5 looks. And you know, too many people have said that the S5 II and the 2X don't look as good as the S5. I don't know if that's true, and I don't even know if that's like a thing that I believe in, but that's one of the reasons I won't upgrade to the S5 II or the 2X, because I like the image quality that I get out of the S5. And I love the image quality that I'm getting out of the GH5 as well. So we'll see what happens. I'm probably going to sell it, probably get a second S5. I'll finish this film. You know, if I had enough money, I would probably get a second S5. Nah, you know what? Because I can't. The limitation of the GH5 is that I could not get an anamorphic lens wide enough for what I want to get to match with the rest of my system. Like I need, if I'm going to get one more anamorphic lens, it's got to be wider than my 35. I got to get the 24. Otherwise, I don't need any other anamorphic lens. I mean, I suppose I could get a full frame anamorphic lens that's wider, but then would it match with my other two series lenses? I don't know about that. So anyway, you know, now I'm talking nonsense, but I'm going to end the video with this. I don't have gear acquisition syndrome at all. You know, I'm not trying to like buy the latest and greatest equipment. I could care less about specs and all that kind of bullshit. I know that I want to shoot 4K because I want to have the option to punch in if I need to. I don't care about 6K or 8K. I don't really care about open gate. I can easily repurpose my footage, you know, just by working on my composition. Composition is like the most important thing to me. So I'm not worried about open gate. You know, I'm very intentional with how the frame looks. And so if I'm working with somebody who wants to repurpose stuff, I could do that on a 16:9 sensor. It's not a problem. So I don't care about new gear. I don't care about new cameras. I don't care about any of that. But what I do care about is, do I have what I need to tell my story? And do I have what I need to not make it a pain in the ass? You know, like I can absolutely, I just finished an entire feature film with one Panasonic S5 all by myself. I'm the shooter, I'm the actor, I'm the lighting person, I'm the sound person, I'm the editor, I'm everything. And it wasn't hard to do. But if I can have 2 S5s or 3 S5s and have them all have lenses that match and then shoot different angles and not have to redo the same scene over and over again, if I don't have to cut it, I could cut so much time and I could make it so much easier for me. And then I could probably make a better film. Even though, you know, I work so hard at memorizing my script, I work so hard on my acting chops, my performance, that I don't have any problem doing things over and over again. As a matter of fact, I enjoy it. And I love trying to like really perfect something. You know, it's like when I was a vocalist in the music business and I was a background singer, or even, you know, with my lead vocals, I like to do one take. Like, it's organic, I just want it to be emotional and what I was feeling in that moment. But for background vocals, I was very meticulous with that. And I wanted it to be really precise, from how much breath I had with my voice to how, you know, according to, you know, in relation to how much tone I was using, you know, the runs, little riffs that I was doing. Like, I was very meticulous, and I do the same thing with my acting. When I'm doing the same thing over and over again, I know what I did the first time, and so I know what I have to do to match that. But having said that, if I could have 3 cameras and have all my lenses set up that match at the same time, that would be pretty dope, and that would make it easier for me. But it's not absolutely necessary, so I'm not like, oh, this is, you know, I think a lot of times people go, if I don't have this, I can't do that. Like, if I don't have this camera, I can't possibly do that kind of project. If I don't have these lenses, if I don't cover all the focal lengths, I can't do what I need to do. Like, it's just excuses. You're just procrastinating. You're just setting up obstacles for yourself to not do it. Because, you know, the fact is, you can have one camera, one focal length. I mean, I shot the whole film with 28 millimeters and 50 millimeters. Without question, I could have shot the whole camera with just the 28. Without question. I could have done it with just the 50, but 28 is much more flexible if you're shooting with one lens. Like, if you only have one lens, I would make it a wider lens. Not too wide where it's distorted, but 28 millimeters to me is perfect. 35 millimeters is right on the edge. But you could do it with 50, in my opinion. You could do it with 85. You just have to adjust your style, you know? You just have to figure it out. Filmmaking is about solving problems. That's what it's about. And once you have that kind of mentality, the possibilities are endless. You could tell any story, you could do anything. And so, yeah, Micro Four Thirds, very attractive to me. And I don't know, maybe there is something that makes the image different because it's smaller. You know, it's a smaller sensor. You're kind of compressing the world a little bit more. You know, there's that crop factor. You have to move back and move forward, and that makes a difference in the image too. And so there's just something about it that I like. So I'm positive that I will do something at Micro Four Thirds at some point, but for now, I'm shooting with my beloved S5. And trust me, I don't feel like I'm compromising anything. I feel like I have the highest level of cinema available to me. Like, I can make a movie that look like, I watched an old Italian film last night called Bardia, B-A-A-R-I-A. And it was an incredible old Italian film. Reminded me a lot of Cinema Paradiso and Malena. And it's just, you know, it was shot long ago. The technology and the cameras at that time were nowhere near what we have now, even in these cheap mirrorless cameras. And so it just, I think maybe that's why I love old cinema so much. It reminds me that I ain't got no excuses. Like there's nothing I can't do. I can do anything that I can think of in my head. You know, I just have to figure it out. I have to come to a place like this and rehearse and imagine. You know, so much of my work is imagining. You know, when I'm rehearsing, I'm imagining being in a big theater, or I'm imagining being in the world that I'm creating in that movie. And I'm imagining what it's like and how I can create that to make a movie, or in some cases to do a play. But our imagination is our key to everything. It's our freedom. It's our capabilities. It's our belief system. It's our value. It's our sense of who we are and what we can do. It's our confidence. You know, if you can imagine, you could do anything. And so, yeah, I am going to post this video. I like what I just said, even though I can't remember every word that I just said, but it feels good. And everything that I do, I go by how it feels, you know? And so, yeah, please subscribe. And please hit the like button and let me know how you like this GH5 footage. And please consider joining my Patreon. That would be so awesome. And all of that.